Welcome back to the Micro Vlogcast. We left off the last episode talking about occupancy and some controls and integrating a lot of the systems into one. We're going to carry on that conversation around controls and behavior in building. Jim, you've been working on a number of commissioning projects over the last couple of years. What have been some of the things that you've seen as it relates to controls that buildings, whether it's education or commercial buildings, have been implementing recently, and what do you think are some of those best practices?
The controls world, it's all programming, and the controls companies have, we'll say, a library of programs which they use for different sorts of heating, cooling applications. And I would say by and large, that library is 10 to 15 to 20 years old and is not taking advantage of best practices such as ASHRAE Guideline 36, go look it up, which has more sophisticated ways, exactly, more sophisticated ways. And remember, it's programming, so it's not like you have to change the hardware so much. It's you rewrite the way things interact and either heat or cool or ventilate. So the difficulty is in we'll call it a one-time effort that can be applied in multiple places, but we don't see that state-of-the-art logic being applied to all of the buildings. And it's kind of classic. Every company takes a while to kind of catch up to the rest of the research world or the best practice world. But because it's logic, it's low cost to implement and can be very powerful in terms of how much energy is affected or not used.
Ryan, did you have anything to add?
And as people will get more and more comfortable with these new ways of programming and that, the building owner and operator also is more comfortable that the programming is going to work, their building is still going to be comfortable.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so they're more open to the idea of further controls down the road. And again, the more you're understanding how the energy is being used, how the equipment's reacting, you can dial in more and more controls that save you more and more energy.
Sure.
There is a balance between simplicity and complexity, and you can, in theory, get more efficiency by greater complexity. There's probably a balance there which has to be reviewed, but at the moment, best practice is not that complex, and it works pretty well.
So, and I'm hearing a little bit of maybe a user gap that might exist between the complexity or the sort of top of the line complexity that controls can have versus where, day-to-day users are actually living and breathing this stuff.
If you're the day-to-day user, it does take some training and some familiarization, particularly if you were a day-to-day user 10 years ago.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So that's a learning curve.
Sure. Well, that'll do it for controls. Thanks for joining us.